The Cardinals grab a bona fide star in Marvin Harrison Jr. The Bills let their biggest rival steal Xavier Worthy. And the Falcons take a quarterback? What? Why? We talk through the biggest losers and winners from night one of the NFL draft on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with the NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com. We have the live draft board with all the analysis, so check it out for round one. I'll do it again for rounds 2 and 3 tonight. And also, of course, check out NFL.com, all the great content they have there to get you fully covered on the 2024 NFL draft.
Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we got through night one of the draft, and at first it wasn't so crazy, right? Everything kind of happened how it was supposed to. Quarterback 1 goes Caleb Williams to the Bears. And number 2 goes Jayden Daniels to the Commanders. Number 3, Drake Maye to the Patriots. So let's start with those top 3 there. And we're going to kind of go through these guys with a fantasy foresight, right? With the draft them, watch them, or forget them in redraft for 2024 fantasy. So Caleb Williams to the Bears, what we expected. I'm saying draft him, right? I think he's going to have a really nice year. They also took Odunze. So his skill players are absurd with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Odunze and DeAndre Swift and Cole Kmet loaded. Draft him.
Yeah, draft him as well for me. And look, we looked at the weapons for CJ Stroud. We saw the potential of Tank Dell. Nico Collins was on the verge of a breakout. We weren't sure what we were going to get from Dalton Schultz and Noah Brown, these former Cowboys, but it all worked out. But here we have some pretty solid evidence on these players. I mean, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, and now Odunze. This is an absolutely loaded skill position team at this point. You have a pretty good offense coordinator as well, Shane Waldron, who really got some good fantasy seasons, not just from Russell Wilson, but from Geno Smith in Seattle. So this would confirm our suspicions before the draft that we're really believing in Caleb Williams as a QB1 top 12 option in redraft leagues and really a high demand quarterback for dynasty leagues as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard not to rank him inside the top 10 quarterbacks for this coming year. What about Jayden Daniels? He lands with the Commanders as we thought. It's a solid enough situation, right? I think we're putting a little bit too much on Jahan Dotson. Like we're like, oh, these are good playmakers. He has Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, but it's like, we didn't see anything out of Dotson last year, and I was high on him going into the year. I was excited about him, what he could become. He didn't really show anything. Will he show something with Daniels? Maybe, but still he has Terry McLaurin there. It's a really solid wide receiver 1 from. Plus, we really just want his rushing upside anyways, right? So we know he's going to get the starting job immediately. I think it's also going to be, if you're going to rank Anthony Richardson high, I think you also have to rank Jayden Daniels high.
Good point. I mean, I think there's a parallel between Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud in that situation that developed in Houston. Chicago's a sneaky team to potentially make a playoff push as a wild card team in the NFC. So there's a parallel there. And with Jayden Daniels, you're absolutely right. There's a direct parallel between him and Anthony Richardson. Same kind of deal. He's an explosive runner. He's got a big arm. And the running, I mean, just alone, Richardson was having early fantasy value before he hurt his shoulder and was sidelined for the rest of the season. So Daniels could have the same type of upside. Now, I'm going to put a little asterisk by him at draft him. I'd like to see them get more help. I'd like to see them add a wide receiver, tight end, especially in round 2 or 3, and also maybe look later in the draft. If they add a few more weapons, they're already pretty good. We mentioned Dotson, McLaurin, Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, a great receiver out of the backfield. And I think they also need to upgrade their offensive line. But, yeah, absolutely drafting him because of that rushing upside, the cheat code, as we like to call it.
Yeah. And then Drake Maye, he goes to the unfortunate situation with the Patriots. I'm going to say forget him for redraft fantasy for 2024 fantasy. But I mean, they still have, maybe they're the team that trades for Ayuk or Higgins if they're still on the trade block, because those trades did not go down in night one. Or maybe they just load up on offensive players throughout the next couple rounds. But right now, he has really nobody to pass to. KJ Osborne's his wide receiver one, possibly. Demario Douglas. Like, it's not a great situation for a rookie quarterback to be in. Plus, he has to compete with Jacoby Brissett. How are your feelings on Drake Maye for fantasy? Does he give you any upside this year for fantasy?
Well, he self-compared himself to Josh Allen. And if that's true, then he's going to be terrible in his first year with his inaccuracy. But I don't even see him getting to the Josh Allen level. He's not that type of runner. I mean, that's where Josh Allen really exploded on the scene here with his big time running, physical running, taking over games with his legs. There's no way Drake Maye does that. And the weapons are really poor. I mean, KJ Osborne was their notable addition here. We'll see what they do. They also need to worry about the offensive line because they didn't bring back Trent Brown. They did bring back Mike Onwenu. So they don't have a lot of weapons. Could be a run-heavy offense, team in transition. Also a tough defensive division. When you look at Sean McDermott, the Bills, the Dolphins are pretty good. And the Jets, we know, are really tough. So there's not a lot of games there. So I'm going to be absolute forget him on Drake Maye, and I'm going to be forgetting him for the foreseeable future until I see something in that Patriots team.
Yeah. And then the Falcons just hate me, I think. Yeah. So they made my prediction come true. Michael Penix Jr. goes early in the draft.
Should be happy. Yeah.
To 8th overall. He actually goes before JJ McCarthy, not something that anybody was predicting out there. Such a weird pick for the Falcons. I mean, Rome Odunze was sitting right there on the board, right? So if they wanted offense, you had someone that could help you win right now. Apparently, the Raiders and Saints were trying to move up for Michael Penix Jr. I don't know why the Falcons wouldn't have just traded down, gotten more picks, whatever, or taken the best defense. They had whatever defender they wanted, which they need defensive help, but they decided to take a backup quarterback because they just signed Kirk Cousins. So unfortunately for Michael Penix Jr., we have to say forget him for 3 years? What are we going to see him play when he's 40 years old out there?
Yeah, I mean, he's an older quarterback because we talked about his career at Indiana, meandering over to Washington, where he finally found his way, could stay on the field, produce, show that big arm that got him drafted in the first round. Now, I'm actually going to say watch him, and here's why. Because this is a very good Falcons offense, I think, right now. Without adding anyone, and I think they will add a wide receiver at some point, but their offensive line is pretty good. We know that. It's veteran. You've got plenty of weapons here. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, you have Darnell Mooney. I think he has a lot of upside as a big playmaker, and you have Bijan Robinson to help you. So there are a lot of elements you like. And Kirk Cousins is 36 and coming off a torn Achilles. So we're going to watch him just in case there's something shaky going on with Kirk Cousins. And if he can't be healthy, we just don't know. Kirk Cousins has been a healthy guy, and I don't think we're going to see him run around like Aaron Rodgers was after the Achilles to prove I'm okay. So this is just to watch him only because he has the keys to a pretty good offense. I don't expect him to play if Cousins is healthy. Let's just go with that. So then we're going to go transition to forget him. So I think for now we have to watch him until we have clarity that Cousins is going to be out there in week 1 and be healthy right away.
Now, JJ McCarthy wins the draft. He gets the prime spot for the quarterback, right? He goes to the Vikings at 10th overall. The Vikings really barely had to move up, so they still got to keep their second first-round pick, which they traded for and thinking they had to move up for a quarterback, you would think. Yeah. But amazing spot for him with great weapons with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson when he's back, and now Aaron Jones. So many good weapons there. The Vikings have averaged the 3rd most pass attempts per game in the NFL since hiring Kevin O'Connell. So over the last 2 years. And a year and a half of that was with Kirk Cousins, but he was still throwing the ball a ton. Kevin O'Connell was like, no, we're still going to throw, even when it was Nick Bolins and Josh Dobbs. So I fully expect him to make JJ McCarthy be like, no, this is my office. This is what we're doing. We have the weapons. So JJ McCarthy is a full-on draft him for me. Does he have the upside of a Jayden Daniels or a Caleb Williams with the mobility? He's plenty mobile enough, but I don't think he's going to put up their type of rushing yards. But still, if you're, staring there between Tua Tagovailoa or Jared Goff or, a Matthew Stafford, I think JJ McCarthy probably has higher upside than those guys with the similar floor.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins is putting up very good QB1 numbers before he went down in terms of average scoring per game. I really liked him last season with Addison in there and Hawkinson for a full year with Jefferson. And we saw that until he got hurt, unfortunately, and the Achilles ended things. So just as a pocket passer alone, Cousins didn't give you much running. There's some upside for JJ McCarthy to produce in fantasy. You're just not going to be irrelevant when you have those type of receivers. We might have to wait for Hawkinson to be in the mix, but even without that, I mean, Jefferson and Addison are plenty here to help him, and they'll probably add some receiver help at some point in the draft. So, yeah, I think he's like those guys, Williams and Daniels, very draftable. But the only question, and this puts him down a little bit, maybe as a backup with some upside that you would stash on your team. Running. We have to see how much he's willing to run. He is a good athlete if needed. I don't think he'll have more design run plays the way that Williams and Daniels might. So I think that keeps him maybe separated from those guys. But you're right. In comparison to veterans who fit the profile, like Tua, that are pocket passers, yeah, McCarthy has way more upside, starting with Jefferson.
Yeah, and then one last quarterback was taken. I mean, 6 quarterbacks went off the board in the first 12 picks. Bo Nix goes to the Broncos. This was pretty obvious. This is going to happen. I'm not super high on Bo Nix as a prospect, especially for fantasy, and I hate the landing spot. So I'm just saying, forget him.
Yeah, I'm forgetting him. When I heard the words point guard come out, no. That means a distributor, a caretaker. That's what he is at best. And look at this room. It's just gross. You have Zach Wilson and Jared Stidham and Ben DiNucci. This is your quarterback room. So you had to get Bo Nix just to have a legitimate starting quarterback with some accuracy that could execute this offense. But the weapons are in transition. They might move on from Cortland Sutton here soon. They traded Jerry Jeudy. They don't really have much at tight end. So this is really not good at all. And their offensive line, I think, underachieved, and Garrett Bowles included. So there's just a lot to like about this, except, he's with Sean Payton, who kind of knows quarterbacks. That's about it. So I'm going to say forget him. And he may never pop up on the radar. I'm just going to be honest with you. He may never be someone we want to even covet in Dynasty. So that's how it is, right? I mean, there's a good chance that half of these guys bust, and we'll never care about them in fantasy ever. So keep that in mind. But I feel pretty confident right now about Williams, Daniels, and McCarthy. And maybe those are the 3 that will do well and the others will not. So maybe
yeah, and 7 wide receivers went in the first round. So very different than when I said only 3 will go. Now, it took a long time for them to start going off the board after the top 3, but we got 7 in the first round.
7
plus
is insane.
Brock Bowers to the stupidest spot ever. But we will get into all of those selections here over the rest of the show.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. So we told you that. Michelle mentioned that at the top. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals who are right for the role. And that's the same thing that NFL teams are doing in the draft when they go through the scouting process, the combine, trying to find the right mix of players, not just to put on the field, but in the locker room so they can have winning success. And that's why you also have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and, most important, for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional only on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, and they're there to help you and to give you the time or resources that you need to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They've even just launched a feature that helps you write your job descriptions, making your process even easier and faster. 2.5 million small businesses now are trusting LinkedIn for hiring. You should be one of those as well. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. It's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
This episode of your favorite Locked On podcast is brought to you by the best meal kit service in the game, Home Chef. No more having to answer the dreaded question, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Thanks to Home Chef and their chef design recipes that are delivered directly to my door, all pre-packaged, pre-portioned. They even peel the garlic cloves for you. And each recipe, one of my favorites, blackened mahi, comes with a full page of easy to read instructions that include customization options and pictures to guide you along the way through the step-by-step process, so you don't have to ask, is that what chard looks like? I cannot recommend Home Chef enough, especially right now, because for a limited time, Home Chef is giving Locked On listeners 18 free meals, free dessert for life, and of course, free shipping on your first box if you head to homechef.com/lockedon today. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Yes, you heard that right. Homechef.com/lockedon. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert.
All right, Michelle, thanks to Ross for providing that great information here, and looking forward to having a new sponsor there, Home Chef, so check them out. And now we got to talk about the wide receivers. We'll talk about the big name guys, the big three, so to speak. And if you want to go with the 1A, 1B situation, we could also talk about Brock Bowers. We'll get to all those three guys. Let's start with Marvin Harrison Jr. After all the speculation, thankfully, my prediction did not come true. The Cardinals just did what they were supposed to do, draft Marvin Harrison Jr. We've been talking about how great this fit is. Absolutely draft him, Michelle. I mean, do we need to say anything else here? This guy's elite.
No, I'll have him ranked as a top 6 wide receiver this year without hesitation, right? I was going to say top 5, but then you have CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it might be hard to get him in over those guys, but he's going to be right there for me. He's going into an offense, Kyler Murray, where he can get 150 targets right away, and he can handle that. So love Marvin Harrison. That's exactly where I want him to be. I think he's going to have just an amazing rookie season. Won't be surprised if we see the record broken again. Malik Nabers goes to the Giants at 6 overall. So they did have a chance to replace Daniel Jones. I mean, JJ McCarthy's sitting there. Michael Penix is sitting there. And they were like, nah, we're going to take the wide receiver. So they're giving Daniel Jones another chance. Can he provide Malik Nabers with the accuracy that Nabers saw at school, right? Jayden Daniels just put that in the bucket for him over and over and over again. That's what he brought up. Malik Nabers is a very good talent, but can Daniel Jones sustain great fantasy production out of him?
Yeah, and that's the one reason why I think you definitely draft Nabers, but you're going to put him more in that wide receiver 2 range, even though he's a clear alpha with the Giants. I think easily that you'll see Marvin Harrison crack into the top 12. He's just going to dominate targets as the clear best wide receiver option in Arizona. Now, they have some other guys here. They recently drafted kind of similar body types to Malik Nabers and Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson, but those guys are limited. I think Hyatt is just a deep threat. Wan'Dale Robinson was those quick guys you put in the middle of the field. Nabers is the complete package. You can put him inside or outside. It's been 10 years since they drafted Odell Beckham Jr. out of LSU. This could give them their biggest upside at that position in New York since then. So, sorry, Kadarius Toney. And then looking at this situation with the quarterbacks, Daniel Jones is on the mend here, so Drew Lock is in the room as well. But I'll give you 2 words why it doesn't really matter. His name is Garrett Wilson. He still produced, even the last 2 years, just ugliness. I mean, this guy was the rookie of the year offensively with nothing at quarterback. So this is before Aaron Rodgers and the injury and all that. So he can still produce a big time. And Nabers, again, as we talked about, he's going to lift that quarterback. It could be Locke starting at some point. It could be Jones. He's going to lift that quarterback. But the biggest thing we like about this, he's going to dominate targets for sure. I mean, Darius Slayton is not going to get the job done anymore as this team's best receiver.
Yeah, Darius Slayton led the team in targets last year. That can't happen again. I think Nabers is a clear, he gets a lot of volume. A Giants player has not had over 800 receiving yards in a season in any of the last 5 seasons. No Giants player has had more than 4 receiving touchdowns in a season over the last 4 seasons. And Giants receivers have averaged the 3rd fewest receiving yards per game since drafting Daniel Jones in 2019. Now, I do think Daniel Jones has a plenty big enough arm to get Nabers, the deep balls to make him explosive. It'll be okay, right? I don't love the landing spot, but I don't hate it. I do think Rome Odunze, who went 9th overall, this might be the worst landing spot for 2024. I think it's a nice landing spot to go to the Bears for his career and maybe next year, but it's going to be really, really hard for him to earn a lot of targets when DJ Moore is one of the best wide receivers in the league. Keenan Allen, even though he's 32 years old, is still one of the best wide receivers in the league. But he averaged the most receptions per game in the NFL last year, Keenan Allen. So it's going to be so hard for enough targets to go around to everyone. I will say, though, Caleb Williams, rookie, he hasn't played with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, right? So it's not like there's an established veteran quarterback that's used to his guys. So maybe it's a different situation, but still, it's going to be hard for him to earn more than 100 targets, right?
Yeah, I think this is a classic watch him because Keenan Allen also is older. He's always getting hurt at this point. So if he's hurt, then that's going to significantly change Odunze's short-term fantasy value. And watch him in every way. I think this is a great dynasty pick.
Yeah.
DJ Moore is not going anywhere for a while.
Keenan Allen only has 1 year left.
Yeah, so he's done. So I think dynasty, you might be good in 2025. But in redraft, I think you just have to watch him. I would think about drafting him in the late rounds, again, because of the situation there, but I'm not going to think about any starting situation for him, even as a wide receiver 3. We need to see it develop. And too many mouths to feed when you include Moore, Allen, DeAndre Swift is a good receiver, and you have Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. Those are a lot of targets to spread around, and we know that's not always good for fantasy. So watch him definitely for Odunze. Now, Brock Bowers, oh no. I did not like this pick at all for the Raiders. I think for another team like the Jets, Bengals, Colts, Chargers, you name it, this would have been a great pick. But not this team. They have Michael Mayer, who I think is pretty good. And they have Harrison Bryant. They just went out and got him. He's actually decent. And so you got 2 tight ends. This is a 3 wide receiver set system, typically with Luke Getsy. He doesn't really play this type. So they're not going to have 2 tight ends up field. They're not going to make Bowers a hybrid here to play off these guys. So I hate to say it. It's also the rookie tight ends usually don't come through. Last year was an anomaly with Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid. I'm going to forget it. I just can't go here.
I don't hate it for Brock Bowers as much. Like I don't get the pick for the Raiders. I mean, I swear to goodness, to get a job as a Raiders GM, they must ask you what are you going to do in the draft? Are you going to make the weirdest, craziest pick? Because they always make picks that make 0 sense for the team. I know that none of the quarterbacks are sitting there for them, so I guess they're going with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell this year. But you just selected Michael Mayer early in the 2nd round last year. I will say Mayer had the 4th most targets on the Raiders last year. Jacobs had the 3rd most. He's off the team. I don't know if Devontae Adams can keep up with 175 targets every year getting older. Brock Bowers is a phenomenal talent. I get it. And I think he can. It just comes down to, does he have to compete with Mayer for time? The whole thing is weird. It doesn't really have a great quarterback to throw to him. So yeah, he's not going to be the top 5 tight end that we maybe were hoping for if he landed in a great spot. But still, I think he has more upside than taking I don't know. I'm trying to see a tight end here.
Yeah, there's no upside
of taking a Cole Kmet, right? So Pat, maybe
that's not going to move our needle very much here. I think we have to forget him for now either, because we don't know how it's going to play with the Mayor. I get it. It's Tom Telesco. It's a new GM trying to figure out what the old Patriots type regime did with Dave Ziegler, trying to maybe correct the mistakes. I hate that. Just look at what you have and don't say, oh, you took Michael Mayer. I'm going to get you a better tight end this year. That's silly. I mean, you don't add extra tight ends when you're, again, a 3-receiver team, and you have Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers probably going to dominate targets on this team. So I don't love it at all for Bowers. And look, maybe he'll get better. He'll win the job over Mayer. Who knows? And he'll be the man, but I just don't like it. So I'm going to say forget it. And we'll see if we say a lot more forget it's here in our last segment.
Yeah, so there was 4 more wide receivers drafted in the 1st round. Another guy didn't come off the board till 23rd overall pick with Brian Thomas Jr. We'll get into those 4 wide receivers that got taken towards the end of the draft to end our show. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. If you're competitive like me, you're going to be a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play at not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. But now I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. And the leadership's boards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, we knew the Jaguars needed a wide receiver, right? We were thinking maybe they were in play to trade for a guy, but they decided to trade back, and then they still landed Brian Thomas Jr. So I like this for them, right? Now they have two guys that are really tall and downfield threats, and Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. But I do think Thomas Jr. is much more talented all around. I like this fit, and I think he has an opportunity to put up some really big production in this offense that lost Calvin Ridley, who is by far the target leader among the wide receivers last year. I think he's a nice compliment to Christian Kirk. And I mean, I guess Gabe Davis is there, but we know he's so inconsistent anyways. I really like the Brian Thomas ad here. I am drafting him.
Yeah, totally drafting him. And you look at this formation, they're probably going to say goodbye to Zay Jones in this situation. And I think you're right. So Brian Thomas might be in that Zay Jones role, which is more productive at times in the Calvin Ridley role. So I think you'll see Davis slide into the big play threat, which would put Brian Thomas right there with their other top two targets that Trevor Lawrence trusts here in Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. So he's in the top three targets. If you're that on a team that has a pretty good quarterback and a passing game overall, you're drafted. So good luck, Brian Thomas Jr. But I thought he was going to go to the Bills, but I can get around him going to the Jaguars.
Yeah, and the Bills said, no, we don't want a wide receiver. We're going to trade with the Chiefs. The Chiefs, the team that keeps beating you. And we're going to let them come up and take whatever wide receiver they want, right? And they did. That's what they did. The Chiefs move up, take the Bills spot, and they take Xavier Worthy out of Texas. I love Xavier Worthy, and I love this landing spot. This is the pick I got most excited for in the night. Now, I know people will be like, he's so small. Like, I know he runs fast, but that hasn't worked out in the NFL. Listen, Xavier Worthy was super productive at Texas. He looked like a star out there in the field. And I want to just compare Xavier Worthy to Jordan Addison, their body size, right? Their height is identical at 5'11" and 1/4 inches, right? Mm-hmm. Identical. Their weight, Worthy came in at 165 at the combine. Obviously, he lost a couple pounds to try to beat the record. He was already back up to 170 by his pro day. Addison was 173 at the combine. Their wingspan is identical at 74 inches. And then the 40-yard dash, Worthy ran 0.28 seconds faster, and he jumped 7 more inches higher than Addison. So their body is identical, except you give so much more athleticism to Worthy. Addison looked completely fine out there in the NFL field. He didn't look too small. He was able to handle himself. Xavier Worthy with Patrick Mahomes in this Chiefs offense. I am so excited. And yes, I'm drafting him. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I'm in between draft and watch. I think I would draft him late as a flyer, and depending on the size of your league. And here's why. I mean, you can't discount the fact that they got Marquise Hollywood Brown. The other thing is if Rashee Rice is suspended or faces some discipline, he's more of a big slot. They love big slots here. When you look at Juju Smith-Schuster, they pretty much got Rashee Rice to replace him. So I think the question comes down to, can they feed all these mouths should nothing happen to Rice? And there's more. I mean, there's Travis Kelce. You got now Hollywood has looked good. If you see some tape of him running downfield, he looks fully healthy and a similar receiver that has a lot of speed and can make some big plays. So I think I'm just worried about the targets. Now, Brown can break down. He was hurt for the Cardinals. And if that's the case and Worthy slides into that spot, then you could have Rashee Rice with greater upside. So you'd have Rice from last year, but then more exciting because Worthy can make all those big plays. So that's where I'm waiting and watching to see exactly what happens with Rice. Now, if you can slide in to be a top 3 target there with Kelce and Brown, then you're really looking at it. But yeah, he's got a lot of talent. He's on the right team. He has speed to burn, and he has a quarterback who can get it to him. So excited, but I think he could have much greater value as a dynasty player in a year or two.
Yeah, dynasty. And this pushes up Mahomes too, because now he went from having no wide receivers last year to having Rice. Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy and still Travis Kelce. Like, this is going to be a fun Chiefs offense again. It was a great pick by them. I love it. Now, the 49ers, I don't know what they're doing. So they didn't trade Brandon Ayuk, and they haven't paid him yet. So we still don't know what's going on. There's still rumors that Debo or Ayuk could be still traded, but like, are they going to first? I don't know what's going to happen, right? But they took a wide receiver and Ricky Purcell out of Florida, who I did not like at all, especially not in the first round. And I'm a 49ers fan, so this bothered me. He's going to be 24 years old to start the season. He played 5 years at college. Production does not scream great, and his advanced production definitely screams mediocre at best. I know he had the one insane catch where he put super glue on his hand, but like besides that, I'm not impressed. No, he's in Kyle Shanahan's system though. So he's a watch him. And if they do trade one of these wide receivers, then yeah, he's a very draftable guy because he's going to get targets. But if Debo and Ayuk are there this year, then he's not draftable.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of his profile, I think it's going to be a while before he produces, but Brandon Ayuk needed that time as well. And I think Ayuk came up with bigger hype going in, and I don't think we were just down on Pearsall. Like, there's some potential there, and I like it, but at this stage, I mean, if they don't move Ayuk or Samuel, I think this was a silly pick. Like, I get it, because the 49ers directly, what happened when they moved DeForest Buckner, what do? Got Javon Kinlaw. Now, that didn't work exactly directly, but they got the replacement.
Didn't work at all.
No. But so that would maybe say, okay, their mindset is we're going to move Ayuk. We're going to put this guy in. We're going to get by with Debo and Juwan Jennings and George Kittle. We'll be fine. We'll work this guy. He'll develop. We're not paying him a ton here the way we would have with Ayuk. So that would all make sense. And Ayuk could still be on the move. Who knows, right? They say probably not, so that's going to live with it. But I think the 49ers, maybe the draft board didn't go their way a little bit. Graham Barton didn't slip to them.
No, it was the draft board went perfectly for them. That's what I don't understand. So there were 6 quarterbacks went off the board, 6 wide receivers already at this point off the board. There was so many needs at offensive line. They could have taken Jackson Powers Johnson, or they have a desperate need at cornerback. You had Cooper DeJean sitting there, or Kool-Aid McKinstry, or they also still have needed interior defensive line, and you had Johnny Newton sitting there. Like, I don't understand this pick at all. This really feels like they have to be trading one of their wide receivers. We'll see.
I think they were so focused on a couple guys that they didn't get them, maybe, like Barton and Furtado. Like, they liked them quite a bit. And then I think they might have gone after Nate Wiggins if he had dropped, because I really like what he could have done. But the
Ravens got one pick before them.
One pick ahead of them. So maybe they just weren't. I mean, obviously a lot of teams passed on DeJean and especially Kool-Aid McKinstry. So maybe they weren't going there with those players, and everyone in the league,
but everyone was passing on Ricky as well, right?
Yeah, so it was a bad pick, especially when you had Troy Franklin. Even the pick right after him at 32 could have been interesting. Ladd McConkey, any of these guys that I was thinking about would have had some interesting upside, because I had him down in the 60s in this draft. So they took a wide receiver that they probably could have got in the 2nd round or 3rd round even.
Yeah, and then one last guy, the Panthers trade up 1 pick, so they had the first pick in the 2nd round. They trade up to they trade up with the Bills. The Bills trade down again, so the Bills didn't make a pick last night, but the Panthers get Xavier Legette. It's a crowded wide receiver room for this year with Johnson and Adam Thielen still there, and then they took Jonathan Mingo pretty early last year. This is a watch him for me in fantasy, especially here. And then we also have to see if Bryce Young gets any better, right? But I think it's too crowded to actually expect much from Legette in year 1.
Yeah, I'm actually going to forget him in terms of his rookie year. And it's very crazy because Dave Canales told Legette that he was going to be the 33rd overall pick. And he lied to him because he traded up and took him at 32. So this is wrong. But when you look at this move, you're right. It's kind of crowded. We're trying to figure it out between Deontay Johnson. They're still hanging on to Jonathan Mingo. What are we going to get from him? Like, is Mingo very similar to this receiver? I think there are some similarities there. And then you have Adam Thielen still hanging around. He's doing his thing here. I'm not sure. And then Bryce Young. We got to see this passing game improve quite a bit. Now, Dave Canales came in to stretch the field, and he handpicked this guy to be the field stretcher and the outside threat on this team. So there's potential, but I'm going to forget him for now. I need to see a lot more from the Panthers offense where I'm going to jump in on a wide receiver here. The Chiefs, right? You can do that. You can go with Xavier Worthy because you know what the Chiefs offense is. A lot easier than going for an offense like this or loaded offense with the 49ers where Pearsall's looking for targets. So again, I'm going to forget it for now. I could be convinced to watch him at some point, depending on what I hear in the offseason, the workouts, and where he is in the pecking order in the depth chart for Young. But right now, I'll forget him.
Yep. But I think what they're doing around Bryce Young, though, this is the correct thing to do. Get weapons around him, see if he can be the real thing. Has no excuses this year, right? So hopefully he can take that step up. We still have so much to watch for in day 2. The Bills still don't have a wide receiver 1.
Troy Franklin, go get him, Bills.
Yeah,
he's sitting there for you.
Chargers still don't have a wide receiver 1. They took a tackle instead. So lots of good stuff. Running backs haven't gone off the board yet. We have so much to get to. We will get to the recap of day 2 and day 3 on Monday. So enjoy your weekend, everybody. Enjoy the draft. Don't miss Monday's show. Bye, y'all.